There are icons, and then there are icons. The art piece known as the Death Dealer is, without a doubt, one of those most iconic images of the entire fantasy genre. And today we're going to be looking at a set that sets out to capture that feeling of 80s over the top fantasy perfectly. So strap yourself in because, well, where we're going, there's going to be a lot of really heavy metal. The War set from RocketPigGames. Right off the bat, gonna say I adore this set. I really do. And we're gonna start with the centerpiece model. This Death Dealer inspired mounted rider. Already you can see a ton of that over the top, almost 80s fantasy aesthetic starts to bleed through. Studs on plate armor, ridiculously large weapons. Just the pose so encapsulates the idea of what this sword and sorcery fantasy genre was at the time. And these two models are just amazingly detailed, both on horse and on foot. They are excellent. There's so much detail in the cloaks, in the folds and the drapes of it, the chain links, how they contour to the horse itself, how they fall. They seem to have some weight when the model is standing upright by itself. It's just amazing. You scale one of these things up, you would have an excellent basis for like a Chaos Lord if you play Warhammer Fantasy or an equivalent game. Make them a little bit bigger. Amazing piece. It's the little details here though. It's the details on that axe, that helmet, that just, perfect. But it's not all perfect. On foot, that axe has some interesting looking tassels that have some, shall we say, gravity defying power? Perhaps unintentionally so, but it is there. And they are a bit fragile. I snapped off one when I was cleaning my print up. Unless it's intended to be something of a pose issue and imply a bit of movement. If you like the over the top, you don't mind the studded armor, plate armor, the massive shoulder pads, go for it. It is a very good model, even on its own. Alright, I want to talk about these collar warriors. They have these big horned helmets and these massive collars around them. These guys are so fantasy, it almost hurts one. However, I love the variety in their pose. You capture that dark warrior aesthetic so well. With the collar around their necks, it's telling such an interesting story about who were these warriors beforehand. Now, I scaled mine up. I printed off a pair of these, and I am going to run them as Goliaths in my D&D campaign. But these would make excellent just chaos infantrymen. The sculpts themselves are just fantastic. Shoulder guards are quite literally embedded into hooks into their skin on the back, and you can see the pull on it. The musculature work here is excellent. These are going to be an absolute treat to paint. Once again, continuing the spiky armor. Horned helmets, not for everybody, but You may want to clip them off, but hey, they're easy enough to work around. Next, let's talk about the Iron Cult. These mad lads in their priest-looking robes with full plate armor, chain, and just a hilarious array of weapons, and their big, pointy helmets. They're great. There's just nothing else. There's nothing else to say about them. They are simply fun. Their weapons are large, over the top, and just exude menace. I will offer some minor critiques that the posing is not the best. The one with the flail kind of awkwardly has his left arm just kind of out. It's just kind of floating in space. It's not doing anything. It's just like there. Just kind of boring, but potential for conversion right there. The rest of them, however, I have no problem with at all. The one with the hammer is absolutely just perfect. The two-handed maul, perfect. The surprising one for me, though, has to be the one with the crossbow. Other than the model not really having a kind of quiver for more bolts, the one with the crossbow is very characterful. The one with the shield and this very weird flail, actually. It's like 3 razor discs shoved together. He's just... It's so menacing and intimidating that I think I want a few more just to have him as a minions of a Dark Lord. Very well done. Very well done. Let's talk about our heroes. We have 2 kind of heroic, but also they could be villainous characters. A male and a female warrior. Both of them have all the trappings of that classic Conan the Barbarian fantasy. Exposed midriffs, minimal armor, and they both just work. You get a female warrior that very much captures that 80s and 90s warrior princess motif, a male warrior who looks like he would be straight out of something like the He-Man universe. Both of them are, once again, excellently modeled. There's so much dynamism to their pose, even as a one-off. If you just need a classic warrior, either of these 2 will most definitely serve your needs very well. This model needs to be scaled up. I need another one scaled up. It is massive. The armor is bulky. The weapon is intimidating. There is so much going on with just the posing and the sheer energy of it. These guys are just a mountain of metal that will not stop, and that sword is coming for you. Excellent pose. Excellent in the detail. No real complaints. If you're printing, just be aware that that sword's got a bunch of little spikes on the side that are very easy to snap off. So, let's talk then about Brutars. These half lion-like humanoids. They're just really fun. They're big. They're almost a starting over. They are starting over. The Brutars honestly kind of impress me. They have this primitive look to them that really encapsulates this kind of spirit of war. These are just creatures of destruction. They don't care so much for the use of armor. So they're minimally armored, only wearing these, what looks like a leather. But the leather around their waist is just so excellently modeled. The hair and their beards, little details on the horns and the teeth, just all of it is this perfect blend of a humanoid ogre creature and this animalistic savagery from the lion or whatever creature is supposed to be their lower half. Let's give this a final rating. In terms of playability, these are going to be perfect. You need some minions for a Dark Lord? Perfect. Easy 9 out of 10 here. The sole problem is that they can be a little over the top and they may not thematically match your game, so pick and choose which ones you may want. In terms of theming, I'd have to give it a 7 out of 10. They're a little all around this kind of classic 80s fantasy or art aesthetic to it, I suppose. But there could be a little more to tie things together, just a little bit maybe. The sculpts here, easy 8 out of 10. The minor quibbles that I have with them are negligible, and they really don't detract as long as you're not put off by, once again, the aesthetic. In terms of printability, I'm gonna give them... Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to give them a 7 out of 10 for this. Not all of the little details are well reinforced by the supports. Sometimes there seem to be some excess supports, a little bit of damage here and there. Small little gaps that don't necessarily need an extra support or are a bit under supported, and detail comes a little soft. There's just minor little quibbles like that honestly irrelevant. Most of them will print out absolutely amazingly. The final score I'm going to have to give this is a solid B+. It encapsulates that early 80s fantasy aesthetic so well. It depicts it in the ways that you would expect it. A lot of this looks like it came straight off the cover of a heavy metal album. Highly recommend if you're in the market for some classic looking fantasy models. And so with that, we come to the end of another review. Thank you very much. Remember, hit that like button, hit the subscribe, turn on your notifications, and drop a comment below if you've got a set that you want me to take a look at. Maybe we'll get around to it.